I wasn't sure how to present the material from this trip, but rather than keeping it to myself, I thought it was better to share it and see where it leads. The Wieliczka salt mine is located just southeast of Kraków. Above ground, the area looks fairly modest. But beneath the surface, it opens into a vast, branching system of tunnels and chambers, carved directly into solid salt over centuries. The mine has 9 levels and reaches a depth of about 327 meters below the surface. The network stretches for nearly 300 kilometers and contains more than 2,000 chambers, with some estimates closer to 3,000. It's an underground world that goes far beyond what visitors ever get to see. According to our trusted history books, the mine was established in the 13th century. It was once owned by the Polish crown and considered a vital royal asset. In the Middle Ages, salt mining from Wieliczka is said to have generated around a third of the royal income. Even the word salary comes from salt. On the public tour, you only go down to the 3rd level, about 135 meters underground, and walk roughly 3 kilometers of corridors. That's maybe 2% of the mine in total. Everything else continues much deeper into the darkness. In several parts of the mine, the walls look like they're built from bricks, but they're blocks of the salt rock itself, cut and shaped. I did see real brick walls inside the mine, but only at the very beginning of the tour. In some places, it's even a single continuous wall where the surface has simply been carved to imitate individual stone blocks. That's what we were told. But as with many tourist sites, it's worth being careful not to take everything at face value. When I got home and looked into it more closely, it turned out that a large part of what you see along the route has been reconstructed. This doorway is part of that reconstruction. Red brick wall, a mortar base, and salt rock slabs. Many of the original salt sculptures were already deteriorating by the mid-19th century. Some figures were described as having no facial features, reduced to column-like forms. This was caused by humid air, water infiltration, and the soluble nature of salt. Since then, and continuing to this day, reconstruction has been an ongoing process. So at this point, I thought about ending the video. I honestly have no clear idea of what is original or what is new. The tourist route isn't a lie, but it's curated. It tells a specific story designed to be repeated thousands of times a day. That's not meant as criticism of the mine. At this scale, it has to work that way. There were enormous numbers of visitors. We were guided through in tight groups, always with another group right in front of us and one close behind. but there is so much more to say about this place and about salt. So just keep in mind that what I show along the way is not necessarily original. And that's something worth remembering whenever you visit a tourist attraction, whether it's here, Pompeii, Stonehenge, or really anywhere in the world. But behind the polished reconstructions lies an enormous underworld of salt, with many stories still waiting to be explored. And one of the most famous places on the route is St. Kinga's Chapel. According to the guide, the chamber was carved by 3 miners who weren't trained sculptors, but self-taught miner artists. The work is said to have taken around 70 years. It's a wild story. The entire floor is carved from a single continuous mass of salt, or so they say. The figures, reliefs, the altar, and even the chandeliers are decorated with salt crystals. The air inside the mine is cool and stable, around 18 degrees Celsius, with a dry, salt-saturated atmosphere. Historically, the air was considered beneficial for the respiratory system, and some areas were even used for rest and therapeutic stays. Along the walls, white crystalline formations emerge, known as salt cauliflower. These are natural salt growths that form when brine seeps through the rock, evaporates, and leaves behind irregular cauliflower-like crystal structures. While reading about the town, I came across something unexpected. I don't know if it has any real connection to the mine. It was a phrase. Wieliczka Hermann with the black turtle. What is documented, however, is that Hermann zur schwarzen Schildkröte was the name of a historical Masonic lodge in the town of Wieliczka. Finding reliable information about it online was surprisingly difficult. Aside from a mention on a strict observance website, clear references were scarce. After digging further, I came across a Masonic historical study by Ludwig Haas, a Polish historian and former professor who specialized in the history of Freemasonry in Poland and Central Europe. In his work, he lists several Masonic lodges founded in Galicia around 1777, after the region came under Habsburg administration. One of them was located in Wieliczka and carried the name Hermann zur schwarzen Schildkröte. At the time, Masonic activity in the region was strongly influenced by the strict observance system, which claimed a symbolic lineage to the medieval Knights Templar. The text makes no connection to the salt mine itself, only to the town of Wieliczka as a location. But almost sounds too perfect. Hermann can mean warrior, and a black turtle is often associated with something subterranean or with a supporting structure, something that carries weight from below. A lodge with a name like that in a salt town feels symbolically heavy, even if there is no direct connection to the mine. The only other thing I noticed was a tortoise named Hermann, described around the same time the lodge appears. Probably unrelated, but interesting nonetheless. As for the name Wieliczka, it's Slavic and Polish, and most likely refers to great or large salt. While the name is local, Wieliczka was well known far beyond Poland, and the name may have been reused elsewhere as a reference to salt, the underworld, or even alchemical ideas, since salt played an important role in alchemy. In alchemical symbolism, salt is one part of a sacred triad: salt for the body, sulfur for the soul, and mercury for the spirit. In a secluded part of the mine, off the regular visitor route, stands a salt obelisk commemorating Archduke Franz Karl of Habsburg. He was the grandfather of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, whose assassination triggered the First World War. Franz Karl was born into the close inbreeding that defined the Habsburg dynasty. The Habsburgs were not merely a royal family, they were a vast European power network, one of the largest dynastic systems on the continent. Generation after generation, they secured influence through marriages with other ruling houses, including Oldenburg and later Glücksburg. The family is often depicted wearing an insignia that uses a cross pate form, a symbol worn by royal families, empires, medieval knightly orders, and fraternal traditions. However, long before it was understood as a cross, the form functioned as a solar symbol, rooted in earlier rosette-like motifs associated with cosmic order and solar deities. Over time, the interpretation changed, as Christianity later adopted the form and gave it a new name and meaning. Anyway, I just found it strange reading about an obelisk down here. Walking through the mine, I find myself asking a simple question: what is salt, really? We think of salt as something you sprinkle on potatoes, but it's a crystal, a structure. In water, it breaks apart into charged ions. That's why salt water conducts electricity. In this clip, you can see what happens when salt dissolves in water. And inside our bodies, those same ions become electrolytes. They're what make nerves fire, muscles move, and the heart keeps time. So, when we talk about the human body as biology, we often forget that we are in practice mostly water, with electricity running through it. Standing inside a mine made entirely of salt, it's hard not to wonder if this is more than just geology. If salt comes from what we call geological formations, then what are rocks really? And if salt can carry charge, what else can it carry? Salt is a crystal. Crystals respond to pressure, vibration, and energy. Could salt, in some way, preserved traces of influence over time. I don't know yet what to make of it, but we moved through a lot of layers. Layers of salt, layers of reconstruction, layers of stories added over time, until the original becomes hard to tell apart. And the route we're allowed to walk only touches the upper layers. That naturally makes me curious about what lies below, about the bottom layer, about level 9, and why 9 levels? Is that just a coincidence? In many cosmologies, the underworld isn't a single place but something layered. In Norse mythology, there are 9 worlds held within Yggdrasil. Dante described 9 circles of inferno. And in Kabbalah, there are 9 sephirot beneath the divine crown. Again and again, 9 marks ideas of descent, trial, and transformation. And then there's the math. Take any number, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Add the digits together. Now subtract that sum from the original number. Add those digits together, and you end up with 9. It always leads back to 9. No matter where you start, 9 is waiting. So maybe the 9 levels of the Wieliczka mine aren't just design. Maybe it's coincidence, maybe tradition, or maybe something else entirely. We can only guess what lies beneath Wieliczka. Salt, secrets, perhaps the black turtle, or maybe it's nothing unusual at all, but it's enough to make the surface feel incomplete.